So, today we're going to dive into a story that sits right at the collision point of a smartphone, free speech, and state power. It's really a story about what happens when words you type online have very, very real world consequences. Our story kicks off late one night in Bayelsa, Nigeria. And this isn't about some powerful politician or a big celebrity. Nope, this is about an ordinary person's voice and what can happen when that voice dares to get just a little too loud. And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This one sentence just perfectly captures that sudden, jarring moment when someone's digital freedom smacks right into the physical walls of a prison cell. So it makes you wonder, what could someone possibly say online that gets them locked up? And maybe more importantly, what does a story like this tell us about the real power our words carry in this digital age? The man at the center of all this is Livinus Nwosu. Now, he's not a politician. He's an activist who used what's basically the modern town square, social media, to ask some tough questions and demand accountability for regular people. And now, he's been remanded, just waiting to see what happens next. The way this all went down was shockingly fast. Nwosu posts some things online apparently critical of officials. Then the authorities move in, like almost immediately. He's charged, and then he's sent to a correctional facility. And all of this happens before any final judgment. It was just boom, boom, boom. But here's where the story gets, well, it gets a little tricky. The official details of what he's actually being accused of, they're really murky. Most of what we know is coming from social media and bits and pieces of reporting, which leaves this huge information gap right in the middle of the whole case. And that lack of clarity, it brings us to the core conflict here. There are two completely different ways you can look at what happened. Is this just legitimate law enforcement at work? Or is it a deliberate move to suppress someone? Okay, let's break this down. On one side, you've got the official argument that speech isn't totally absolute, right? There have to be limits to stop things like defamation or inciting violence. From this point of view, the state is just keeping order. But then, on the other side, critics are seeing a much bigger, more troubling pattern of silencing dissent. They're arguing that locking up an activist sends a really chilling message to anybody else who might dare to speak up. This line right here perfectly sums up the official justification. The government's stance is, hey, we're not trying to crush free expression, we're just regulating it to make sure society stays stable. It's a very fine line, but an absolutely crucial one. But the message that critics and other activists are hearing? It's totally different. To them, it's a warning, loud and clear. It basically says that questioning certain people or certain institutions, well, it comes with a pretty heavy price. All right, let's zoom out for a second, because this one case is really a symptom of a much, much larger trend. This isn't just about Livinus Nwosu. It's about this new digital battleground where, honestly, anyone with a smartphone can stand up and challenge traditional power structures.
This is the new world we're living in, right? A single device in your pocket can question leaders. Conversations online can shape what the public thinks faster than any newspaper ever could. And meanwhile, our legal systems are scrambling to catch up and figure out where all the new lines should be drawn.
This whole situation really exposes a fundamental tension that's at the heart of so many societies. On the one hand, to get accountability, people need the freedom to speak out, to criticize. But on the other hand, to have stability, there have to be some limits on what can be said. And those two essential things, they're constantly pushing and pulling against each other. Let's just look at it simply. You want accountability? You need space for people to speak freely. You want stability? You need some limits on that speech. Nwosu's case is stuck right in the middle of that dilemma as Nigeria tries to figure out its balance. So, where does all this leave us? This case is more than just a local news story. It's really a symbol of a massive question that a modern, digitally connected Nigeria is facing right now. And that brings us right back to the central question, the big takeaway here. Was this just the system working as intended to maintain order? Or was it a powerful warning shot fired at anyone who dares to speak out online? There is no simple, easy answer here. The reality is probably messy and somewhere in the middle. But the most important thing is that we're asking the question, that we're looking at these events and trying to understand what's really at stake. Because if we don't, we risk not even noticing what's happening until another voice, and then maybe another, just quietly disappears from the conversation.